President William Howard Taft and Teddy Roosevelt's fighting for the Republican nomination in 1912 had divided the party, and the nation easily picked a Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, the governor of New Jersey and former head of Princeton University, as president. Wilson was a progressive like Roosevelt and committed to domestic reform. The biggest of his domestic policies was the creation of the Federal Reserve to monitor the nation's money supply. While Wilson attempted all of these domestic reforms, chaos broke out in Europe. With the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, Europe found itself divided with two sides and the start of World War I between the Allied and Central Powers. The war was horrific, full of modern amenities that only made the suffering much more severe, and people in the United States wondered which side to root for. Wilson ran for re-election in 1916 with the promise that he would keep America out of the war. He won a close election, but the sinking of the Lusitania, combined with German submarine warfare, and their promise to give the Southwest back to Mexico if Mexico attacked the United States, prompted Wilson and the Americans to get involved, joining the Allies just when they needed it most, as Russia had just dropped out of the war to have a revolution. Posters at home and propaganda drummed up new recruits as well as raised awareness and financial support. The U.S.'s military invention was a great help, assisting the Allies in overthrowing the deadlock in the trenches and eventually overwhelming the Germans, which led to the armistice in November of 1918. The ensuing Paris peace talks the following year would settle the conflict between the losing Central Powers and the victorious Allied powers. This was Wilson's chance, as he was ever the idealist, to promote world peace, self-determination, and democracy throughout the new countries that were being established with the end of several empires. However, the Allies were not as keen as Wilson was. Wilson wanted Germany not to be punished severely, but France and Great Britain had suffered mightily during the war and saw otherwise. Wilson laid out his 14 points for peace, and the Allies accepted many of them. However, they did not apply them to Germany, wanting Germany to be punished. The biggest one of these was the creation of a supranational group that would promote peace, the League of Nations. The Allies and many other nations jumped at this opportunity, but Wilson couldn't get it through the United States Senate, controlled by Republicans. In order to drum up support for the League, Wilson went on a speaking tour across the nation, advocating for it. During one of these engagements, Wilson suffered a stroke, which incapacitated him and actually led his wife to doing most of his responsibilities and duties. Wilson's recovery from the stroke did not gain him much sympathy with the Republican Congress, who rejected the notion of joining the League of Nations, and Wilson left office in 1921 very accomplished, but the United States had not joined the League of Nations, and Germany had been severely punished against Wilson's better advice, both of which would lead to problems later on.